What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of AI Roundup. This week, we're going to be keeping the Roundup style of delivering you 6 different news stories about AI-related content. Plus, we're going to be trying out a new segment, AI Alert, where we will be debunking some images that got over on people. Hopefully, we can keep that one going. Let's get into it. All right, so like I had said in the teaser of the show, I really enjoyed the roundup style of the news reporting that we did on the last episode, so I think I'm going to keep that going. I think I'm just going to hit you guys with a bunch of stories, try to hit the facts, and give you a little reaction if I have one, but otherwise just keeping it moving. And if you like that, let me know. I want to keep this show short and sweet and hit you with some stories that I think are totally relevant. On top of that, I also mentioned it. I want to try out a new segment. So instead of a use case, we're going to do what we call AI Alert. I'm going to share some images that I saw getting passed around on the internet as if they were real. To me, they were clearly AI, but we're going to unpack that a little bit more. But before we get into it, I did just want to let you know about some other events happening on the MSP Media Network. For instance, yesterday we had a new episode of Technical Deficit where Ray and Matt are building some keyboards that they had a workshop for at MSP GeekCon. Also, check out later today a new Partner First with Victor Lopez, co-founder and CEO of FlexPoint, and they're going to be asking the question, are you running a bank or an MSP? And as always, make sure go check out the other show that I produce and edit, MSP Dispatch, every Tuesday and Friday with Ray Orsini and Tony Francisco, one of my favorite shows. Anyway, let's jump right into our actual impact stories for today. All right, in our first actual impact story, AI-generated junk is flooding Etsy. In this article from The Atlantic, Caitlin Tiffany details how the entrepreneur side hustle mindset is attacking the new AI movement as the next gold rush. Entrepreneurial YouTubers like Joshua Mayo are leveraging AI tools such as OpenAI's ChatGPT to generate ideas for businesses online, primarily creating AI-generated products to sell on platforms like Etsy. However, this trend is causing concern among traditional sellers on Etsy who fear that the influx of AI-generated art could devalue hand-created work and push them out of the marketplace. YouTubers in the article describe how they make money selling ideas of how to make money with AI. That's right. This is like when you used to see the signs on the telephone poles that would say, send me $100 and I'll tell you how to make $1,000. And they would just simply tell you to go put up signs on telephone poles saying, send me $100 to learn how to make $1,000. Anyway, it goes on to detail how a major portion of side hustles right now are using AI to generate copious amounts of kitschy merch like mugs and throw pillows with wine jokes like, I make poor decisions, that's right, poor, and sip happens. And while the author lambasts the practice of using AI to power your side hustle, she also jokes that consumers are angry about the practice and they argue they could have done it themselves, but it's too bad because they simply didn't. This article left me kind of all over the place. The article seems to agree with doing this while also kind of like giving them a hard time. I kind of feel the same way. I think it's great that people can use AI tools for this stuff, but I think we're already starting to see in some industries, critical mass of what's happening here. One of my favorite lines from the article was about how I think Caitlin tried to do this herself and found that most of the ideas generated by ChatGPT to make these, kitschy merch items, they were already listed on Etsy. Someone had already used the ideas for these products and made a store. So that makes me wonder, where did those ideas come from in the first place? They were probably stolen off of something like Etsy in the first place. And just as a side note, I think it's really interesting that now that we're seeing this AI generated product infusion into Etsy, it seems like it's furthering the controversy Etsy had already been through where, it used to be for handmade products and it really moved away from that. And now we're seeing that going even further with AI. Interesting stuff. If you have any Etsy stores or side hustles with AI, sound off in the MMN Discord. Let us know. All right. And moving right along, speaking of abusing things with AI, we're actually going to be seeing some AI used to regulate the abuse. From ESPN by Jeff Kassouf, AI used at World Cup to identify 300 making abusive online posts. FIFA, in collaboration with the Global Players Union, FIFPro, used an AI project to track and identify over 300 individuals who posted abusive, discriminatory, or threatening comments on social media platforms during the 2022 World Cup. The AI system, which monitored around 20 million posts and comments, helped to identify and hide offensive content, with the identified individuals' details being forwarded to law enforcement agencies. The system will continue to be used at the Women's World Cup next month in Australia and New Zealand. So this is just the latest in AI moving into moderation efforts on online platforms. We've noted on this show before that you see it in Midjourney now when you try to prompt it. Instead of using banned words, now they have an AI evaluate your prompt for context. I've even seen it on Facebook recently where they're using automatic systems, AI type systems, to identify if something you've posted is, kind of like intellectual property theft. Like they're saying, hey, you shouldn't post this. It's been posted before. So it's interesting to see that this is being used to stop, kind of messed up comments going online surrounding sports events. I think that sounds good. I just also worry about the ramifications. It's almost like a Minority Report world or something we're moving into, where AI is going to, predict who can say what. And I see the upsides and I see the downsides. So interesting stuff. And then our final actual impact story for today, we've talked about AI and music quite a bit. In fact, on last week's episode, we made some AI music. And I was so jazzed to talk about the AI Drake song in the past, which I, had on repeat for a while. Well, coming from NPR by Juliana Kim, the article's entitled, "And the award goes to AI featuring humans. The Grammys outline new rules for AI use." The Recording Academy, which presents the Grammy Awards, has established new rules indicating that only human creators are eligible for the top honor in the music industry. While songs that contain elements generated by AI can still be nominated, proof of meaningful human contribution to the song is required. The CEO of the Recording Academy, Harvey Mason Jr., affirmed that AI will have a significant impact on the future of music and that the industry needs to adapt and establish standards for its use. I couldn't agree more. We're seeing that more and more, that the standards, the events are running up against the walls where people are saying, is this okay? Do we have a playbook for this? And most of the time they don't. So I'm glad to see that in some ways the Recording Academy is taking it on. I'm not totally sure if I agree, but I also wonder, how much can they truly regulate this? How much can people using AI get by with this? Maybe if they can get over with it, it doesn't matter because it meets the rules. Anyway, let's move right along to a few more stories in our big picture segment. Okay, well, we've talked about this subject quite a bit on the show, and it surrounds the idea of AI as a bubble. I think the verdict is still out on that, and I thought it might be great to hit an article that actually gets a ton of information from some prominent economists and see where they're at on it. This coming from Yahoo Finance by Xenia Salfidi. The article details several experts and analysts, including economist David Rosenberg and representatives from Bank of America and UBS, are comparing the surge in AI-related stocks to the dot-com bubble that burst in 2000. The tech-heavy NASDAQ 100 index has jumped 39% this year, largely driven by AI stocks like Nvidia, Alphabet, and Microsoft. However, others like Wharton Professor Jeremy Siegel and Tradier CEO Dan Raju argue that the boom in AI stocks is not overhyped and does not represent a bubble, as AI benefits are being realized currently and the adoption curve is still in its early stages. Now, we actually talked about this on an episode of MSP Dispatch recently. I'm still wondering, when does this become a bubble and when does the bubble pop? Personally, I feel like it is a bubble. I feel like a ton of people are moving in on AI. I do think it's having real world value created, and it's driving a lot of the stocks and, making a kind of a boom for the tech industry. But I think even just going back to the first article that we talked about with Etsy getting all this AI generated junk, I think that actually relates a lot to what we're going to see with the bubble, the boom, whatever you want to call it, related to AI. All right, and our next two stories in the big picture are kind of related to stories we covered last week. That was one that London was moving to be the first to get a lot of AI technology from OpenAI, Google, etc. This article from CNBC by Arjun Karpal says France makes high-profile push to be the AI hub of Europe, setting up challenge to US and China. France is aiming to establish itself as Europe's hub for artificial intelligence, with President Emmanuel Macron stating the country is well positioned due to its access to talent and startup growth around AI. The French government is backing this tech push and plans to heavily invest in training and research. Despite facing stiff competition from Germany and the UK, Macron hopes to bridge the gap with the US, which is currently seen as the AI leader. The country's strategy includes fostering the growth of local AI startups and advocating for global AI regulation through bodies like the G7 and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. So like I said, we talked about this last week. We're seeing this kind of territorial movement related to AI, and I don't know where, the ball's going to drop, or where is this all going to settle in? How much of it is really going to come down to the location? I feel like we're so globalized already when it comes to technology. Is AI really going to be restricted by boundaries? This is a new development I've only seen in the last couple of weeks. So I'm going to stay tuned to it and kind of see what other countries are doing to stay ahead on this AI race. All right, again, this is kind of a follow-up to another story from last week where the EU passed, or at least began the process of passing regulations about AI. This is an exclusive from Time Magazine by Bill Perigo. OpenAI lobbied the EU to water down AI regulation. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman has publicly advocated for global AI regulation, but behind the scenes, the company lobbied to soften certain elements of the EU's comprehensive AI legislation, the AI Act. OpenAI successfully argued against classifying its general-purpose AI systems, such as GPT-3 and DALL-E 2, as high risk, which would have subjected them to strict legal requirements. Instead, the finalized act calls for providers of foundation models to comply with a smaller set of requirements. The lobbying effort aligns OpenAI with other large tech companies like Microsoft and Google, which have also advocated for less regulatory burden on creators of general-purpose AI systems. So, this is pretty interesting. I think we've said it before that Sam Altman has definitely been out front about trying to push for regulation of AI, but like I've also said before, I'm not sure how I feel about Sam, because here we are, this makes total sense. Any giant corporation, much less a tech company, with this much riding on it, it's no surprise at all that, of course, they're lobbying to make regulations easier. So I feel like it's a little bit of a, smile on my face, stab me in the back type situation. Maybe that's a grandiose metaphor for what's going on here, but I think you guys get it, right? It's obvious that some of the push for regulations is a little bit of a farce, I feel like, when you hear this news. So we definitely do have to keep the pressure on. And if these companies are going to do stuff that, is bad for the public overall, we shouldn't let this stuff just slide on just, easy face value regulations. I think that's what could end up leading to Skynet, but as y'all know, I'm not really a fan of that kind of rhetoric surrounding this stuff. All right, that's it for the big picture stories. I do have one new segment I'd love to jump right into, where we're going to take a look at some AI images that I saw on my Facebook newsfeed this week, and are they real or not? All right, welcome to AI Alert. That's the working title for now. Maybe it'll stick. We'll see. I talked about this in a previous episode where I shared a bunch of images with you guys that were being passed off as real. I don't know if people got tricked or they were just being disingenuous, but they were sharing AI generated images that, to me, they were pretty obvious. But for some reason, so many people, if you read the comment section, thought they were real. The first one that came through my news feed this week was a mobile library in Italy, and this was shared by Voracious Beauty, a page on Facebook, and the post got over 9,000 reactions and over 1,000 shares. But thanks to hoaxeye.com, I think that might be one of my favorite sites for the next month or two, they revealed that this is actually just a series of AI images by Ulysses.ai on Instagram. So this one is pretty straightforward. If you're looking at the image with me right now, it doesn't seem even physically possible for this car with all the floors of, shelves of books. That doesn't even seem feasible. But I don't know. I did go through the comments, and lots of people just seemed to take it at face value that this was real, saying things like beautiful and I did see another person, because this was shared into an AI group where people were kind of laughing about it, that the idea that, oh, just because this is a mobile library in Italy, that somehow makes it more feasible. I don't know. Anyway, moving right along to the second one I saw. This one is a little more tricky. It definitely has some AI generated images in it, but there's actually two layers of what makes this weird and a hoax. First of all, this was shared by BNN Belmont News Network. I took it at face value that was just some local news network when I first saved this screenshot. Of course, once I started to dig in deeper for the show to figure out if these images are real, I quickly discovered that BNN Belmont News Network is a satire page on Facebook. But, big ups. I'm a big fan of those kind of pages, as I run a bunch of them myself. Now, what's also interesting about this is that the images that they're sharing, by doing a little Googling, I found really fast, the sunnyskies.com blog showed that there are black bears in North Carolina that are playing in the beaches. That's real. Actually, a couple of these images are real. The ones that are probably not real, I'm not entirely sure, but I'm 99% sure, are the ones with the men trying to chase the bear and catching the bear, and he's taking a picture with them and smiling. Pretty much right away, these look like, Midjourney images, and since I couldn't find anything that would officially debunk them, I figured, hey, I'm going to go ahead and play around on Midjourney myself and see what I can get. I tried a few different prompts, like military man chasing a black bear. What was the other one? Man in SWAT gear chasing a black bear, and they didn't really come out great, as you can see. Finally, I just tried animal control chasing a black bear on the beach, and I got some pretty similar images to what you see in this hoax post. I think the real giveaway was the hands of the bear, like the claws, and kind of become these long fingers. And to me, that was kind of the giveaway, not to mention just the situation that these men are in with a bear. It just, I pray to God nobody's actually out there chasing black bears and, trying to pose and take selfies with them. I don't believe that for a second. In fact, when I was researching this more, everything I found about black bears invading, people were shooting them with tranquilizers and stuff. So this to me is, seems like it's a real obvious one, but an interesting story to see that, satire pages are using real images and punching up the story to, maybe drive the joke home a little better. They definitely got that one over on me a little bit. So I hope you guys enjoyed this segment. If you come across any AI art that is getting, over on people, fooling them, giving the impression that it's something that really happened, but to you, you're like, wait a second, I know Midjourney or Stable Diffusion when I see it, send them my way. I've definitely put out the feelers in some of my groups for more stories like that, but I'd love to hear from you. Hit me up in the MMN Discord, and we'll cover some of those on the show, and, I'll give you a shout out for that. All right, everybody, this has been another great episode of AI Roundup. As always, I'm your host, Phil Buck, and I've had a blast. Stay tuned. We'll be back next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Until then, everybody, take care.
This has been a broadcast of the MSP Media Network.